General Douglas MacArthur was one of the most celebrated Allied commanders in World War II, but his leadership in the Philippines campaign, 1941 to 1942, was not without serious mistakes. While he would later redeem himself by leading the liberation of the Philippines in 1944 to 1945, his initial failures contributed to the rapid fall of the Philippines to the Imperial Japanese Army in 1942. Here are some of his most significant blunders. 1. Failure to defend Clark Field. One of MacArthur's most costly mistakes was his failure to secure U.S. air power in the Philippines. After the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, December 8 in the Philippines, MacArthur had nearly 9 hours of warning before the Japanese attacked Clark Field, the main U.S. air base. Despite this, U.S. aircraft remained parked in tight formations, making them easy targets. When Japanese bombers arrived, they destroyed nearly the entire U.S. air fleet in the Philippines in a single attack. This left the U.S. forces without air cover, giving the Japanese complete air superiority. This blunder crippled American defenses and made a Japanese invasion inevitable. 2. Ignoring War Plan Orange 3 WPO3. Before the war, U.S. military planners developed War Plan Orange 3 WPO3, which called for an immediate retreat to Bataan in the event of a Japanese invasion. The idea was to hold Bataan and Corregidor long enough for reinforcements to arrive. Instead of executing WPO3, MacArthur tried to defend all of Luzon, which stretched his forces too thin. This led to quick Japanese breakthroughs, forcing a chaotic and unplanned retreat to Bataan. As a result, U.S. and Filipino forces arrived at Bataan without enough food, medicine, and ammunition, leading to their eventual surrender. Had MacArthur followed WPO3, his troops might have been better prepared for a prolonged defense. 3. The flight to Australia. On March 11, 1942, as Japanese forces closed in on Corregidor, MacArthur was ordered by President Franklin D. Roosevelt to escape to Australia. Before leaving, he famously declared, "I shall return." Many soldiers saw his departure as abandonment, especially as his subordinates and troops were left to face capture. The surrender of Bataan, April 9, 1942, and Corregidor, May 6, 1942, led to the Bataan Death March, where thousands of American and Filipino troops suffered and died. Meanwhile, MacArthur, safely in Australia, worked on his comeback strategy. Though his return in 1944 fulfilled his promise, his initial mistakes contributed to the suffering of U.S. and Filipino forces. 4. Overconfidence in the Philippine defenses. MacArthur underestimated Japanese capabilities and overestimated the strength of his own forces. He believed that his 30,000 American troops and 100,000 Filipino soldiers could hold off a Japanese invasion. However, most of the Filipino troops were poorly trained and lacked modern weapons. The Japanese forces, under General Homma, were highly experienced and quickly overwhelmed the defenders. MacArthur's misjudgment of Japan's military strength led to a swift defeat. Conclusion: a costly learning experience. Despite his mistakes in 1941 to 1942, MacArthur learned from these failures and planned a more effective campaign to retake the Philippines in 1944 to 1945. His leadership in the Battle of Leyte Gulf and the Battle of Manila helped liberate the country and restore his reputation. However, his early strategic miscalculations, failure to protect air power, and overconfidence contributed to one of the worst defeats in U.S. military history. His legacy remains controversial, with some viewing him as a hero and others as an egotistical commander who made critical errors.